For as long as we've existed, humanity and nature have been locked in a silent war. We build walls, we sail oceans, we convince ourselves we've won. 147 passengers, 23 nationalities, a dream expedition to the end of the earth. They laughed, they dined, they had no idea. Because this time, nature didn't send a hurricane or an earthquake. It sent something invisible. Something already on board. Something that would leave this ship carrying death to 4 continents. I'm a clinical microbiologist, and this is the story of how a single rat in a forgotten corner of Patagonia brought a cruise ship to its knees. So what exactly is hantavirus? It's not new. Hantaviruses have been known to science since the Korean War in the 1950s, when thousands of United Nations soldiers fell ill with a mysterious hemorrhagic fever. The virus was eventually isolated from the striped field mouse near the Hantan River in South Korea. That's where the name comes from. But here's what most people don't realize. There isn't just one hantavirus. There are dozens of species, each carried by a specific rodent host. In North America, the sin nombre virus is carried by deer mice. In Europe, the Puumala virus is carried by bank voles. In South America, the Andes virus is carried by the long-tailed pygmy rice rat. And each species causes a different disease with a very different mortality rate. The Andes virus, the one on that cruise ship, is special, and not in a good way. It's the only hantavirus that can spread from person to person. Every other species requires direct contact with rodent urine, droppings, or saliva. But Andes can jump between humans through close, prolonged contact, particularly in the early phase of illness when the patient is most contagious. Let me walk you through what happens inside the body. It starts when you inhale aerosolized particles from infected rodent excrement, or in the case of Andes virus, through close contact with an infected person. The virus enters through the respiratory tract and targets the endothelial cells, the cells that line your blood vessels. This is the key to understanding hantavirus. It doesn't destroy the cells immediately. Instead, it disrupts the tight junctions between endothelial cells, the molecular seals that keep fluid inside your blood vessels. When those seals break, plasma leaks out of your capillaries and floods into surrounding tissue. In the lungs, this means fluid fills the air spaces. Your lungs literally drown from the inside. This is hantavirus cardiopulmonary syndrome, or HCPS. It progresses from mild flu-like symptoms to complete respiratory failure in as little as 24 to 48 hours. The mortality rate for the Andes strain ranges from 35 to 50%, even with intensive care. Even with ECMO, which is essentially a machine that breathes for you, mortality is still around 20%. There is no vaccine. There is no antiviral drug. The only treatment is supportive care, keeping the patient alive while their immune system fights the virus. Now, let's talk about what makes the Hondius outbreak so alarming. The Dutch couple who died first had spent 4 months traveling through Chile, Uruguay, and Argentina on a bird-watching trip before boarding the ship. Health investigators believe they contracted the virus from rodent exposure somewhere along their route. The long-tailed pygmy rice rat, the primary carrier of Andes virus, is common throughout rural Patagonia. But the incubation period for Hantavirus is 1 to 6 weeks. That means the Dutchman was likely infected weeks before he showed symptoms. He boarded the ship feeling perfectly fine. And then, in the confined spaces of a cruise ship, with shared dining halls, narrow corridors, and recirculated air, the conditions for transmission were created. What followed was a textbook example of why infectious disease experts fear enclosed environments. Passengers who had been in close contact with the infected couple began falling ill. A German passenger, others with mild symptoms. Some passengers disembarked at remote ports before anyone knew what was happening, carrying potential exposure to multiple countries. So, is this the next COVID? No. Let me be very clear about that, and here's why. First, transmissibility. COVID-19 had an R0, or basic reproduction number, of around 5 to 6 for the Omicron variant. That means each infected person spread it to 5 or 6 others. The Andes virus, based on the 2018 Argentina outbreak, had an R0 of around 2.1 before interventions and 0.96 after quarantine measures. That's dramatically lower. Second, route of transmission. COVID spreads efficiently through respiratory droplets over short distances and aerosols over longer distances, even from asymptomatic carriers. Hantavirus person-to-person spread requires close, prolonged contact and is most likely during the symptomatic phase. You're not going to catch it from someone walking past you. Third, mutation rate. SARS-CoV-2 mutated rapidly, producing new variants every few months. Hantaviruses are remarkably stable. The Andes virus genome shows very few mutations over years. It doesn't reinvent itself the way flu or COVID does. But there are 2 things that should genuinely concern you. The first is the mortality rate. COVID had a global infection fatality rate of roughly 0.5 to 1%. Andes virus kills 35 to 50% of those who develop cardiopulmonary syndrome. If you get seriously ill with this virus, you have roughly a coin flip chance of dying. That is an extraordinary case fatality rate. The second concern is the lack of countermeasures. We have no approved vaccine, no antiviral therapy, and our best treatment option, ECMO, is a scarce, expensive resource that most hospitals in the world simply don't have. If Andes virus ever became significantly more transmissible, which there is currently no evidence it's doing, we would have almost nothing to fight it with. But what the Hondius outbreak does reveal is something more fundamental. It shows how quickly a rare pathogen can go from a remote corner of Patagonia to 5 countries on 4 continents through the simple act of people moving. A birdwatching trip, a cruise ship, a commercial flight. That's all it takes. Next video, we go deeper into the organism that may already be living inside your brain. Toxoplasma gondii, the mind control parasite. This has been Apex Pathogen. If you want to understand the invisible threats that shape our world, subscribe.